said you love me, but I don't believe a word from your mouth. That night they caught the fire, the rockets would explode. Well, my best friend says he knows you, and that you're a fucking hoe. So we walked down to the beachside to kill a near took my life. I with Santa Claus in my teeth and nothing ever tastes so right, Lord. Hell yeah, the next night down we went drinking, cause we surfed all goddamn day. And that night at the party, you know the ladies are out to stay. Well, I took that road to heaven, but somehow I kept falling back down. If you're thinking you are try to drink, it only gets passed around, yeah. Did you know this is where I go? This is my road to heaven. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Lord, my road to heaven. Oh, my road to heaven.
Welcome. Today we have Slayer from the Wolf's DAO. This is Interview with a Wolf. It's number 10 that we have officially reached right now. Number 10. This is where we dive into the den. We meet the members of the DAO, the Wolf's DAO. Today we have Slayer, as I said before, and she is Web3 gaming builder, advisor, and strategist. She previously was director of operations for Exterio Games, and last but not least, the COO of Wolf's DAO. Slayer, what is up? Thank you for coming today.
What is up? Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. We are vibing. You know, there's some good games out that have got me addicted. It's a good week so far.
Yeah, no, I see you on the timeline all the time talking about the games you're playing. I believe Mapleverse is the one that you are bullish on. Is that correct by me
Maple
saying that?
Story, yeah, Maple Story
Maple
is a
Story.
special one for me because it was my first MMO I ever touched. And Maple Story is what turned me onto play to earn way before Web3 was a thing, right? So I was like preteen, grinding Maple Story, get some rare drop, and then some random, totally not safe, but some random messaged me like, I'll pay you $80 for that. Now imagine being a preteen, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to spend all of my free time doing this forever from now on. So yeah, I was a Chinese gold farmer in Maple Story way long ago. And for them to come bring that IP into Web3 now, it's like full circle for me.
I had no idea that Maple Story was a thing. I mean, how long has that game been out
So
for?
Maple Story is crazy. They are one of the few games that can say they have been alive for 20 years. And there are some people who've been in the comments saying, "Oh, I've played this game since I was 13 all the way up until now." So yeah, they've been running for 20 years, bringing such a huge IP into Web3. And I think that's one of the most bullish cases for me, having read their white paper for Web3 adoption in general, because you have a game that's survived for so long, and their white paper is a masterclass in them thinking about Web3 the right way, right? So really quickly, they analyze what is it that made our game so fun that it survived for 20 years, and they identified it's this joy of getting items, and then the items are fun to get because of two factors, utility and rarity. And then they go really deep into how, because they've been running for 20 years, they're running into issues with scalability and growth of just making sure that continues to be fun for the next 10 years. So they have a really long-term outset. And their conclusion was, blockchain tech is interesting for us, and in the way that they implemented it is what they believe will help them continue to have this game alive for the next 10 years. So I think it's a really masterful piece of research and writing in one of the few games that's been alive for so long to hit these kind of scalability problems, organically coming to the conclusion that Web3 is what's going to help them survive for the next decade.
Right on. Well, I want to roll it back a little bit. So I want to set the stage a little bit for how this came to pass, how this came to be. The interview with the wolf number 10. I mean, can you even believe it? The stars aligned, and like number 10 seems to be like a really, really special number.
It's a good
It's like
number.
a
I dig
benchmark.
it.
Yeah, it's
You
kind of
hit
like a
double
bench.
digits.
Exactly, it's the first double digit, like, you're on here, it's really super special to have you on here, it really is, and I wanted to roll it back and kinda set the stage and tell the 14 viewers, and we know it's gonna go up and to the right, much like the markets right now in the crypto markets for viewership, but, so I met Slayer probably a good month ago now from a mutual friend, obviously a fellow wolf from of the Dow for you that is, and his name is Jay Ryan. So Jay Ryan, I set up a phone. I believe that's right. So
Mhm.
Jay Ryan is. I set up a call with him. I wanted him to come on Interview with a Wolf, but he really isn't taking interviews right now. But he was kind enough to jump on the phone with me. And I showed him about like what I'm kind of working on and stuff like that. But he mentioned that I needed to make sure that I talked with this epic character in the Web3 space named Slayer. So here we are. Ended up getting on a couple phone calls. Was lucky enough to even speak with Peyton and her, and so I got to know Slayer over the past couple few weeks, and it's been a pleasure. And now we're here. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, shout out Jay Ryan for the recommends. Appreciate you, bro. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to know you. You know your story, what you're trying to do in this space. Really, really powerful.
Appreciate it. I really do. So, how we format these things is it's all about my interest in what you guys are building now, but more so important, not necessarily just the Wolf's DAO as the hive mind, as Matt DeFi says, and now I'm going to use that every single time. But it's more so what makes up the hive mind, the individuals, because I just don't like after getting to know all like the wolves and networking and talking with all of you, what I realize is how much value you guys bring to the space. And so basically, you know, your past into gaming is where we're going to start. And then we're going to segue into present and then even like maybe even your future outlook on things. So, anyway, Slayer, I have to start off by asking you some questions about your how you got into gaming as a kid. You know, like that right there is a nostalgic thing that I always am super interested in. So, can you just touch on that? What were your favorite games? What did you play as a kid? What like
Love this question. So my first video game ever when I was too small of a baby and had no motor functions or ability to wield a controller. My mom brought me up having me watch her play original Super Mario Brothers 1 with the Slash Duck Hunt cartridge on the original NES. So I grew up watching her beast through that, knowing all the secrets. So by the time I was, I don't know, like 3 or 4 and it was my turn to finally try because I could grab a controller, um, I was like a 4-year-old being like, "Oh, like secret warp pipe here. I'm gonna just skip to level 8." Like I know all the things. So I came up on Nintendo. Um, and then at some point, it's really funny because like my mom introduced me to gaming, right? You think she'd be really supportive. At some point, the my parents are Chinese immigrants, but I was born and raised in America. At some point, the Asian parent switched on, and they were like, "Oh no, you have to go get A's in school now. So if you ever want a video game again, you have to explain to us why it's educational for you." So, you know, my case for getting Super Smash Brothers was,
mhm.
oh, there's percentages, right? So I'm learning percentages when I damage people. And that actually somehow worked on them. Yeah, it came up through Nintendo. I had a I never got into the Xbox system because I was always like solo. You know, one of the things about growing up when I did is gaming wasn't sexy back then. Now it is, right? Now everyone wants to market to gamers. It's cool to be a gamer. Back when I was a kid, you were so uncool if you were a gamer. That was like automatically put you in nerd category. And on top of that, I was a girl, right?
Mm,
So it's even less cool. So I had no friends to game with. And when you put a female voice in a voice chat, if you like enter a COD lobby, right? It's just not a pleasant experience. So I never got into FPSs. I was always MMOs, ARPGs. So when I got onto a PC, it was like Neopets and MapleStory were my jam. As I got older and I got more into harder games, you know, near Ghost of Tsushima, Elden Ring, and then
Mm.
I actually stream Genshin for the past 4 years on Twitch. So yeah, my gaming's been a part of my life forever. With Web3 gaming finally coming out when it did, I was just like, oh, I have to jump into this space.
That's awesome. I got to ask you a couple different things, a couple different titles you mentioned. One being Mario, and finding the warps and stuff like that. You didn't mention bouncing the turtles. Did you learn how to bounce the turtles in
Yeah,
Mario Brothers? Okay,
yeah.
that's
When you
yeah,
get the turtle stuck between the two pipes and it just goes
exactly.
crazy. Yeah.
No, no, it's like when you're hopping on. I think it's like at the like end
Oh,
of like
the
you have
flying
this.
ones.
Well, it's like it's at the end of like the second or third level, or maybe it's level 4, and then like you go up on the stairs at the end of the level, and then you like trap it where you're bouncing it off the stair, and then you jump on the turtle, ricochet it into a chair into the stair and back. So it kind of creates a little bit of a loop where you're bouncing the turtles, and after you get to 1,000 points, I believe it is, with that combo, then you get a 1 up, and so
Yeah.
you can keep on bouncing on the turtle and get like 100 lives or something like that. But if you get over 100 or 200 lives, then you actually die. I'm not sure if you knew that.
I've never gotten that high in lives.
Oh, really?
They're like, oh, you're stalking too many lives, we kill you.
Yeah,
That's
they
so
do. They
funny.
do. It's almost like a sick joke, but like you get up. So what happens is, I'm sure everybody that played Nintendo back in the day and bounced the turtles, you get up to past like 99 lives, and then it turns into like a little crown. And then the further you get, you don't know how many lives you have. It's almost like you could kind of look at the emblem, and the crown becomes cracked or something, and then you get too far, and then you just die and you start all over. It's crazy. So if
That's
you get too
such a
many,
troll.
yeah, totally. It's a total troll move, but it's amazing how it's like one of the first troll moves that any game did. It's pretty cool. Did you ever get into Contra back in the day?
I didn't so the only NES games I had, because it wasn't the current system at the time, it was just like stuff that, my parents and my uncles had. We had Super Mario Brothers 1, and then I had a couple family members that we'd visit them a couple times a year, and they had 2, Super Mario Brothers 2. And then another distant family member that would occasionally, maybe once a year, also congregate at that house the same time we were there, had 3. So I've played
Nice.
those 3. I haven't really played any other NES games.
Awesome, awesome. Well, you mentioned Elden Ring, and what's so fun about these interview with the wolves? I mean, I'm obviously a gamer, as I mentioned before, and it's cool talking to people who have had common experiences getting like clearing games. And From Software is one of my favorites. Obviously, you mentioned Elden Ring. That I think came out in 2020-ish. Did you have a chance to beat the whole thing?
No, so I'm like embarrassing. I'm like a huge slacker. It's hard for me to get time to play, and that's a game
Yeah.
where I want to play for hours because it might take me. I think one time I streamed it, it took me 90 minutes on stream to beat like a grass spider in like the first castle. Wasn't even a boss. It was just I was just tilted. I wasn't gonna let this guy beat me. It took me 90 minutes on stream, but you feel like a god after. So I think I got past the second rune. So the my viewers love when I describe it this way, but the sad lady whose husband left her for another woman, with the creepy children who come out and crawl on the floor and fight you. Yeah, I beat her, and then I think I'm supposed to head to the capital now, but that's where I paused for a while because it's just been busy. But I do need to get back into it, especially now with the what is like the multiplayer co-op thing coming out.
I didn't even know that was a thing. Holy moly.
You
Yeah,
didn't know?
geez.
It was it State of Play or whenever the trailer came out. So it's in the Elden Ring universe, but a separate game.
Mhm.
It's multiplayer co-op with the same enemies and some bosses from Elden Ring. And it's not a battle royale, but it's got some of those elements like a circle that forces you to get closer, but it's co-op. You're with a
Really?
team and
Whoa.
the progression works faster, so you're just trying to like fight your way and survive through hordes.
Okay.
I
Okay,
might I
yeah.
might be getting some details wrong, but that's roughly the idea. And if since Jordan was your first interview, it's something that Jordan and I have been watching and excited to play together when it
Oh,
comes
I
out.
gotta I gotta look it up. Any sort of DLC that comes out, or any sort of anything with these From Software games, yeah, I'm all about it. Moving forward. So, like, I wanna get into Obviously you mentioned a little bit about, Web3 gaming and stuff like that, but I want to actually get into how you were introduced to Web3. Like how did that ever come about?
Yeah, so Web3 gaming for me is an interesting it was the first time that an industry really struck me and was like, you need to be in this. And the background there is you guys now know I've been a gamer my whole life, and that's kind of been something in the background because once I got to a certain age, it's not something my parents supported. Um, it wasn't something that was cool in school or anything like that. So it was like I was a closet gamer, right? Dang Neopets. Yeah, I was a closet gamer. Um,
By the
it
way,
wasn't
what's
really
up,
something
Yuval?
What's up?
Go
It wasn't
ahead.
something that I brought, out into the open for what I did outside of gaming. I was a, math and science person mostly. And I majored in financial engineering. My first job out of college was Wall Street. So when Web3 gaming hit, I was like, oh, hey, this is a combination of my secret hobby and my actual training professionally. So this is a space that I need to be in. But how I got introduced, I did not get into it for the trading elements. So I had friends who were in Bitcoin when it first came out who were into the trading. And at that time, I'll admit I faded it a little bit, right? I have I actually have a pain story. If anyone's down bad and wants to feel better about themselves,
Let's
I
hear
have a
it.
friend who was an early employee at Coinbase back in like 2013 or something. Um, and he had a decent amount of Bitcoin. They even gave away like 25 cents worth of Bitcoin that you could claim on Coinbase as wedding favors, and half the party left them on the table unclaimed back then. So money lost. But after a year or two there, he kind of just lost faith, left Coinbase to go work at Visa instead, and sold out of all of his Bitcoin. So
Oh
if you guys
my
ever
god.
feel bad about any trading decisions, at least maybe you didn't do that. But I've had friends that were in it early. I really got into it more because my last Web 2 job before I jumped full-time Web 3 was working at a music label. And running up into COVID, there were a lot of artists who were just wanted to explore different things. They shut down touring. So I was brokering startup conversations with artists for digital concerts, and these it was a stage when people were willing to try more things. So I had a couple people start come to me say, oh, hey, what are these NFTs? Could I do something like that? What's Web3? What are these social token things? And so I started looking into it for both helping artists and also on things like the back ends where we won't go into details, but the music industry in terms of how it keeps data about who's written what part of a song and what percent everyone owns. It's an epic mess, right? It is
Mm,
probably the most poorly kept. If you try to look up an answer of here's a song, who owns what percent, you'll get inconsistent answers depending on
mm,
who you ask because there's no universal database. So there were some companies looking at blockchain tech with the public ledger to make that better. There was front facing stuff with the artists like NFTs, social tokens. And that's when I really got into it because I was more for the tech, the idea that people who are fans of things spend so much effort and so much time doing things and promoting things, making fan art just out of love of the product or the brand or the person behind it. And that was all free labor, right? And nobody could get any piece of that. And for me, Web3 was, hey, instead of giving all your effort and labor and data for free to these five companies that control everything, you can take a piece of that back, right? There was a pushback against surveillance capitalism and all that. So I got in more for the tech and started watching it. And then as soon as Web3 gaming jumped off with Axie, that was the wake up call for me of, hey, you're a finance person who's been a gamer, like you need to be in the space.
I want to ask you about this musical aspect of why you got into this. You mentioned the reason why you got into it is to help the musical artists basically, fairly get the royalties fairly get distributed, for lack of better words, right?
So that
Um,
was like how I got reintroduced to Web3 in terms of utility. Is one of the things I was doing at the label is leading the innovation team. So it was my job to just look at new tech, new startups, and see how it could benefit the company. So I saw from both back ends with dealing with all the messy data of the industry and also front facing like artists experimenting with social tokens or putting their music as NFTs, more of the tech use cases rather than the pure trading use case.
What year was that you actually got into it?
So
That
it's
you were
around like
starting?
2019, 2020,
Got it. Okay,
right
so
before COVID, basically.
I have a couple questions in regards to this because it's really interesting. I'm a musician too, so
Oh, awesome.
this is something that I've you know always been interested in. It's always been something like, oh, how do they do that, right? How do they divide royalties? How do they pay out royalties? This, that, and the other. And with the capability of the smart contracts, I could see how that'd be a hugely beneficial thing. So is that like based on all your research, is it only new artists moving forward or the new music written moving forward, or could it be done retroactively to basically take care of the artists and the people, the individuals who, get the royalties split up and dispersed in the past? Is it something that can be done retroactively as well as
Yeah.
moving forward?
So it's just moving your database over, right? One of the startups that I worked with at the time, they were doing experiments with, was it Warner, potentially Universal, and a couple of other big players in the ecosystem that work on the back end to do a test of, let's put parts of your database onto a blockchain ledger, but in a permissioned way where your competition can't get access to sensitive information. But that way, when an artist sells part of their rights or some part changes hands, then that automatically gets published to everyone in the ecosystem and it saves a lot of friction. So yeah, it's just
So
bringing, in the same way that you can put anything that already exists on chain if you wanted, it works the same. Music is not any different.
that's so cool. So did they successfully do that? Do you know if they're, or you might not even be able to talk about some, I don't even know, but I got to ask the question. Have some of these major record labels actually segued or migrated their databases into blockchain yet?
I know, and the music industry, having been inside it, I'll say out of all the entertainment verticals, is the most technologically behind. They're usually the slowest to adopt any kind of tech, very averse to change, whereas I would say gaming tends to be at the forefront of it. So a lot of the industry is still run by people who are older. And, when in the label that I was working at, we still had artists that refused to go digital and wanted to get mailed paper checks because it just made them more comfortable. So I think music generally, personally, in my expectation, I just expect it to be um, the laggard in terms of
Mm.
adopting new tech.
Okay, okay. Let's kind of segue over to some questions. I've never heard of anything called Game Sloth. Have you? By the
That
way,
does
what's up?
not ring
Shout
a
out to you,
bell
Evolve.
for
Yeah,
me.
it hasn't either. Shout out to Evolve. He is an amazing individual. I've talked to him a couple times over the phone. Really cool guy. Um, but anyway, yeah. So Mickey, Joey, let's effing go. Pablo. Awesome, dude. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. If anybody else has any questions while we talk, please do ask because Slayer is an absolute wealth of information and she's a goat of the space. But anyway, so kind of moving forward, we're at the tail end of the conversation of the music industry, and I wanted to segue into your involvement with some of these other brands or games within the Web3 space. So obviously, you told your story of how you were introduced. It's very very early. You were introduced at a very very early stage of crypto, but you faded it. For any of the new people listening, 30 by the way, and then it slowly kind of got into the music industry and then gaming. So can you tell me a little bit about some of the gaming studios or companies you've worked with in the past? Obviously, Exterio Games being one of them.
Yeah, so my first few years in my first 6 months in crypto, I was just experimenting and wanted to see as much as possible. So I purposely didn't go full time with anybody. I just consulted and advised a few projects. The biggest one that people would probably know was the G2 Esports. They were doing something with fan club on Solana, and then they also, because of my music background, wanted to. We worked on their first original song, which was a heavy metal song that Carlos at the time, who was still there, was the lead singer on. So that was a
Nice.
super interesting project. And then um, one thing that I did as a result of, teaming up with some people in consulting is meet someone at NFT NYC who ended up being a, a co-founder of a startup that we built. So one of my first forays into Web3 gaming was actually building a startup. Axie was huge at the time. And at that time, Axie had built natively into the game technology the ability to effectively rent your NFTs out to enable that manager and scholar system, right? But the problem is, unless the game actually built that into their technology the way Axie did, there was no way for that system of managers, scholars, and guilds to go into any other game. So we
Mm,
raised in a bull market, and it was probably the easiest time I've had funding. No pitch deck, Notion docs describing the business, and we were crazily oversubscribed on the idea of building technology and infrastructure that would enable renting at the wallet level so it could go into any game. A few months in after raising, we quickly realized that, let's look at this economy a little bit in more detail. I don't think this is sustainable. So we kind of saw the writing on the wall and pivoted to a couple of times. But what it ended up being for the user was almost like Tinder for gamers, right? You would literally say, like, if anyone's ever played a multiplayer game in a lobby with randos, you probably know how toxic it can be.
mhm.
So what we did is you could voluntarily enter stuff about your profile as a player. So it's like, I'm a sweaty ADC, right? I want to go into a game. It's frustrating if you want to go hardcore and your teammates are too casual or vice versa. So you could literally go down to the level of detail of, I am a hardcore sweat ADC. This is my rank. These are the characters I play. This is some details about my play style. And it would match you with someone who's equally at your sweat level with a comparable role, like a support
Hmm.
or a healer or something.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and then so it would help gamers get a better match, and we got a lot of good
Yeah.
feedback from that. We actually had some people like, "Oh, hey, I ended up dating my like teammate, and now we're in a relationship," which was kind of cool. But in the name of doing that, people would voluntarily share a lot of details about their playstyle, and our idea was if they opt in, games could then use that for acquisition, right? So hey, like let's run a specific campaign for all the sweaty Call of Duty mobile players in Brazil. And give them a special offer for jumping early, get this like special gun in this play test that's like overpowered and experience being super powerful. So we did that. Was really excited about the idea because for me it was, I was in charge of building community, doing the BD. I thought it was something that was helping the space. Got to talk to a lot of games, and then in the bear of what was it, 2022,
Yeah.
my co-founders chickened out. Harder to do funding. People weren't as excited about gaming, and they outvoted me to. I got outvoted by the entire team except for me to switch to being an AI SaaS company, which I
Hmm.
was nowhere near as excited about. I wanted to stay in Web3 gaming. So I've consulted for a lot of companies in that time. Jungle, Joao is a really good friend of mine, done some work with him, worked with a lot of good teams. If you guys remember Meta Theory, which was Kevin Lin's entry into Web3, I've had my own agency doing Discord stuff, and then now working with gone through Exterio, and now working with Wolves to build up both the new community for Wolf, and
Mhm.
the products that will be coming out of that.
Awesome. I think that that kind of segues into the Exterio. I'm really interested to hear exactly what's going on with Exterio. Can you explain what that's all about? What that company was about?
Yeah, so Exterio is a Web3 gaming publisher,
Mhm.
and they brought a lot of Web 2 expertise into the space. So the CEO, Michael, has a background from NetEase and also from Fun Plus, which, if you're more familiar with the Asia game development side, those are big players in that arena. Fun Plus was very big on mobile. Jeremy Horn, who was the COO of Exterio, comes from Jam City and has a long history in free to play mobile gaming specifically. So they know that arena really well. And one of the things for Jeremy that he says when he tells his story is, especially in free to play mobile, marketing and user acquisition is a very I wouldn't say it's a solved problem. There's obviously a lot of pain points that are still to be solved, but it's very cut and dry, right? It's mostly ads and performance marketing, not so much brand marketing like you would see in PC on console world. And what that means with performance marketing is you generally know that you put this much money in and this is how many views and impressions you're going to get out of it. It's super formulaic. And so for him, he was like, that got old. It's a little bit boring. And seeing some of the pain points in UA, was looking at Web3 as a potential alternative of, hey, what could this technology, tokens, blockchain, ownership to players do for helping bring down UA costs and also increase retention? So Xterio had 4 or 5 first party projects, so games that were fully developed in house by teams that were employees of Xterio across multiple genres. There was 4X, a shooter game, an AI browser based game that was a little bit more casual, and then Overworld, which is probably the one that most people know from Xterio, was slated to be a PC based action RPG. And then they also had a publishing model where there was a marketplace and an NFT launchpad that could support third party projects in a more lighter touch of, hey, you're doing a mint, you don't want to build all these tools yourself, just run it through our launchpad instead.
Awesome, awesome. You mentioned a moment. Well, so before I ask that, so you said that Exterio was a video game publisher. It's kind of what Buxton's working on too with Warpcast, isn't that Warpcast or Warp
Yeah,
Chain? Which
Warp is
Warp?
a newer entry, and there are also a lot of people who come from Web 2 with expertise across Web 2 on making games fun, making games scalable. They want to bring their expertise there and support games through the whole process. I would say that some of the differences is that Exterio was more focused when I was there on their first party games, and then their way of interacting with third parties was people who wanted to use some of the tools that they built, like the NFT Launchpad. Whereas Warp, I think, is really trying to go more hands on with the third party games that come into their ecosystem.
Got it. And talking a little bit more about Warp, I saw a tweet, and I'm looking through your timeline to try to find it. Am I delusional by saying that you just got brought in as some sort of advisor for that, or is that
Yeah,
something?
they're one of my advising clients. So I'm an advisor for Warp. One of the reasons I came on is I liked that the team, I think the emphasis is on making games that are fun, right? It's one of there's a couple different schools of thought in Web3 gaming. And for me as a gamer, that part of my brain is always, unless you're building a truly full Web3 degen game where it's built to be profitable and sustainable from just the Web3 audience, which generally means leaning super into degen, risk to earn, something like a poker model, right? Everyone's buying in and you completely know that you could lose everything, but that thrill of what if I do win and hit it, uh, keeps you wanting to throw in, unless it's something like that kind of fully on chain, pure degen game. Most games realistically need Web 2 players, right? Most games in our
Mhm.
space, if we look at them honestly, based on their plans, based on the size they want to be at, there's just not enough players here in Web 3 to sustain you. And you need to go out and get Web 2 players. Also, for economy design, most games are set up in a way where, let's think about WoW. If 90% of the WoW players were gold farmers, the economy would absolutely collapse. So there's a place for some of those people because there's a demand for their services. But for a game, most games to function properly, you also need a very healthy portion of players in your game that are playing with the Web 2 gamer mindset. And that means I'm willing to pay for because I'm having fun, because I want to speed up my progression, or because I want to flex and look cool in this game with skins and customs.
Mhm.
And that means that you need to attract Web 2 minded players for fun reasons. So, what I liked about Warp is with their expertise, one of the things that they've talked to me a lot about in their vision and their ethos is testing and making sure that games are fun. And then all the other stuff they layer on top of that, a sandbox to test your economy, things like that, help go from there. But if you don't have that core loop, then long term, there's going to be an issue when you have to go up against the thousands of Web 2 games that come out.
Got it. And speaking of flexing and looking cool, because you just said that, I gotta point your attention, and this usually gets pointed out at the beginning of the show, but I gotta point your attention to this background that we specially designed for you. There's something that we do for every
I
single
did
guest.
notice that. I was wondering about that because I was like, "Oh, I don't think you put that up for, I can't picture that with Blake, right?"
Oh, yeah, I can't picture that up with Sinjin for sure. This
Yeah.
is this is definitely specially for you. Shout out to Juliana, project artist for Pupils. She's really, really talented, and you know what she does is she does a lot of research on the guests that are going to come on the show, and she does a little special thing. You know, it's just her. It's her little tip to the hat, nod to the hat for what we're doing here, and it's a way for us to be a little bit different in a really saturated market of live streams.
Yeah.
So doing custom art for all of our guests is something that we do. So this is for you.
That's amazing. Shout out Juliana. I love it. I was looking at I noticed the character doing this, when we were in the waiting room, and I'm like, "Wait, I don't think
Yeah.
they had that on for the others."
Nope. No, that was especially for you. Um, but you know, moving forward, I was kind of going through your timeline right here, and it reminded me you are really, really bullish on a game called Cambria. There's some
Yes.
other you know, content creators that are also super bullish. I think Winterfire has been playing this big
Yep,
time.
Winter's in it
Shout
as
out.
well. I am so addicted. I'm in one of the sweaty guilds. Like, we have people who, like, posted, like, "Oh, been playing for 30 hours, haven't showered or slept or eaten. Maybe I should take a break."
I had no idea there was guilds on that. I had no clue,
Oh, yeah,
but I
guilds are
know
a big
people.
part.
Are they? Oh gosh, you know, I feel like I'm like behind on some stuff, especially on abstract. But speaking of abstract, so have you been accruing and accumulating points on abstract?
I do. So I stream on Abstract, which has been so a background there. I've been streaming on Twitch for 4 plus years now.
Oh dang.
In Web 2,
Hmm.
mostly MiHoYo games like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. I used to do some of the ARPGs, but when I get in a really sweaty Elden Ring fight, then I can't talk to chat for 30 minutes or they'll troll me. Like, they pulled hey, kill this guy. He's really weak, but he's got great loot. And then he turns into a bear and eats my face. Um, so we stopped streaming Elden Ring. But the Twitch community, a lot of the Twitch community and the ones that I have are just super, they've been fed in misinformation and they're super gut reaction anti anything Web3. Like they hear the word NFT, they don't even know what it means, and they'll get
Hmm.
triggered and hate it. So they
Yeah.
don't know I work in this space, and I wouldn't stream Web3 games there. I've considered making an alt on Twitch to do Web3 games, but since I would still use my same setup and my face, I'm like, oh, they could find me. I don't want to get harassed for it. So when Abstract launched, it was perfect. It was a Web3, you know, space where I could stream the Web3 side of things or just things that aren't in my normal Twitch genre. So yeah, I stream, I've played a couple of the games on Abstract, but as a MMO player, Cambria being on Abstract is probably the Abstract game that I've sunk the most hours into easily.
And I actually sent you a message the other day. We were talking about Cambria because I just logged in the other day, but I noticed that you needed to mint an NFT. I asked you, and so for anybody who doesn't really know about Cambria, it's an MMO game, massive multiplayer online game on abstract, super addicting. But so you don't need to actually own one of the NFTs to play or be in a guild.
Yeah, so the way that Cambria works, what's interesting about Cambria to kind of set the tone for people who don't know is personally, in my view, compared to a lot of the games that are MMOs in the Web3 space right now, it's the most Web3 native. So Cambria originally, the team actually put out something that was a super degen experience called Duel Arena on Blast. And that was 1v1 duels and you bet ETH, you stake ETH on it, right? So
Wow,
super degen.
super
And then
cool.
they announced that they were actually working on a full MMO. So they've done a couple play tests in the past. I've always been excited for it because it was interesting for me to see what kind of economy and game design decisions would come from a team that started out so native Web3 degen that might be different from how a team that more came from Web 2 into Web 3 would design it. And they definitely delivered. So Cambria, compared to most MMOs in the space right now, is heavily risk to earn,
Mm.
right? So it really it's a really big push for the people who like to put things on the line. Couple reasons why: you have to pay to play. So to play, you don't need one of their NFTs, but you need a charter pass. I think it came out to like was like $20 or $30 or something, depending on the price of ETH at the time. So you have to put up something to get into the game. From there, that could be the only investment you make the whole game, or you have a limited amount of energy a day. If you spend that and want to recharge it, you can buy energy refills called orbs, which I think go for around like 2 USD. ETH has gone up a
Hmm.
little bit, so maybe it's higher now per pop. But the
Mm.
reason it's risk to earn, you start out in this safe area, which is the city. As you get further out, different areas of the map are different levels of risk, going from like T2 to T5. In a T3 and up area, if you get killed by another player, you lose all of your gear and they take it all from you.
What?
So that's the risk to earn element, right?
Like the gear that you
The
actually
gear that your
could,
character is wearing. So you buy, so
but
like,
you could sell that gear on the secondary marketplace? Is that?
here's how the game works. So the loop, and it's only a 2-week playtest, which is
Mm.
ending Friday, but there's a couple different play to earn loops going on here. One, the goal of the game really is to get these things called artifacts, which can drop from mining, fishing, or fighting enemies. The higher risk area you're in, the more likelihood you're going to get these things to drop, and you're going to get a higher tier that's worth more. The
Cool.
longer you stay in a high risk area, your reward index grows, which increases your chance of dropping. But the higher you stay in a high risk area, you also get negative effects like building fatigue and stress, which could drop
Yeah,
negative status effects on you.
right.
Or then
Not
you
to mention
start
you could get robbed and
you
looted
could
and
get ganked
killed.
by another player. Yeah, so it's very
Yeah,
risky, but
yeah,
it
that's
really
cool.
encourages, like it pushes you to what's your risk tolerance, right? So these artifacts you turn in, it gives you royal favor and it gives you silver. So the two different dual loops of this game are: your royal favor gives you these gacha rolls that
Mhm.
you use to get points towards towards their eventual token, as well as land tickets for their upcoming landsmint. Then at the end of the game, you might have seen the headlines. They have like a $1.2 million prize pool right now in USDC. That's taking a portion of all in-game player spend to build that prize pool. How
Wow.
much in-game silver, which is like their soft currency in the game, that you have in your inventory that you're holding at the end of the season determines your portion of that prize pool.
Holy
Um,
moly.
so you have to, but you also have to spend silver to unlock your skill tiers, get higher skills, buy gear. If you get killed, you have to rebuy your gear again or repair it. So there's
Wow.
always drains on your silver, right? Or you might need to buy special potions that help you escape when you're getting killed, or healing
Mm.
foods. So it's a really interesting economy, but they've even this is the Web3 native part of it. They've even built in loops, understanding the different personas in Web3 for whales. And there's not one, but there's two whale loops. There's passive whale loop of, I'm not playing to play this game, but I'm bullish on it. I'm going to put some ETH in and basically passively stake that, and I just get a percent of certain player activities in game.
And this is abstract wrapped ETH on L2. It's not mainnet ETH, right?
It's yeah, so it's basically you buy the charter, which you buy with
Oh,
abstract ETH, and then if you
right.
don't want to play the game, you can just put that charter into like this passive vault, and
That's
you'll
pretty cool.
automatically get your proportional part of certain activities. Then there's
Cool.
the active whale loop, which is, I want to be like a guild manager, like an Axie. I'm going to sponsor charters for players who don't want to pay their entry fee to play the game, but then I'm going to get 50% or whatever percent you set with each scholar of their earnings in the game. And they actually set up these two loops for passive and active whales to be directly opposed, where the stronger one side gets, the less the other earns.
Yeah, this is really cool. I want to touch on a couple different things, and then I want to move on to the next subject, which is very, very interesting. But I'll ask the question in a sec. So, are you a Twitch partner? I've talked to a couple other people who were part of the Twitch partner. Or are you a Twitch
Yeah, I'm an
partner?
affiliate. I'm not a partner. So Twitch
Okay.
streaming for me, when I first got into it, I told myself it was a hobby. It was never going to be my main source of doing income, and I told myself, hey, try it. If you like it, keep going. If not, you can quit within 3 weeks. No big deal. It's like 4 years later, I still like it, but because I tend to go hardcore into things, if I don't tell myself certain things are like not for that, I'll go hardcore. So yeah, Twitch, I'm an affiliate at my peak. I've only ever streamed like max 2 days a week. So
Mm,
like not consistent enough. I don't post on socials. I don't do any of the things you would need to for growth.
got
But
it.
at my peak, I think I hit like 40, 50 concurrents.
Nice. And then you said that you do stream on Abstract and you stream on Twitch. Do you ever, because like you can set up your destinations to go at the go live at the same time. Do you stream both on Abstract and on Twitch at the same time?
I don't multi-stream because Twitch is where I have my Web2 stream and they don't know I work in
Oh, that's
Web3
right.
and Abstract is for my Web3. So I actually use these as separation of content.
Okay, got it, got it. Yeah, one of the YouTubers, and I don't know if he's on Twitch or not, but Penguin Zero. He's like a big time. Have you heard of Penguin Zero on YouTube?
I Sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, he's like big time. My oldest son, who's 19 years old right now, started watching him back in the day, like probably 2006, 2007. He was streaming Gears of War, doing glitches and stuff like that. But I've been following him for a really, really long time, and he's always, talking trash on NFTs and crypto and stuff like that. But anyway, I don't even know where that's going to go with that. But I wanted to get into the next segment, which is the Wolf's Down. So on your bio, it says that you're the COO of Wolf's DAO, and I'm assuming that means Chief Operating Officer,
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. Can you tell me your story into the DAO? Like, how did you get introduced? What made you want to stick around? Super
Yeah,
interesting.
Jay Ryan actually plays a part in that. So,
He's like the
oh, he's
matchmaker,
one of
isn't
the
he?
OGs. So 2 Token Singapores ago, I was at an event. If you guys remember a Web3 company called Ethlas, they had hosted an event at Token Singapore. And it was one of the cooler Web3 gaming events. They had a station, a room where a bunch of Web3 games were showcasing their games and you could actually play them. Imagine that. So I was having fun in there doing networking, and Jay Ryan might have been the first one that I met. I saw he had a Wolves DAO tag on his shirt. At that point, I already knew of the DAO, had a lot of respect for them as people that just were made of membership of shakers and movers in the space, put out quality content. So we got into a conversation, and then Wesley, also from Wolves DAO, was in this conversation as well. Abu from Ronin Ecosystem, and the three of us just started nerding out hardcore about Elden Ring and FromSoft games. I told them that Elden Ring was my first FromSoft entry, and they just started talking about which ones to recommend me next
Oh yeah.
from the ecosystem. And we were just like the best part was just vibing from love of games, right? We got talking into Web3 games and exchanging knowledge of what we're bullish on. I was, on my like Pixels. I've been a Pixels OG, so I kind of shilled that to them a little bit. And then they were like, "Hey, you're really cool. You clearly know a lot about the space. We're gonna go have we're supposed to have a Wolves DAO dinner now with Sinjin, but you're cool. Come tag along." So I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I meet Sinjin at the sushi place. We're vibing for dinner, and then Sinjin's like, "Oh, let's go karaoke after." And like you, I'm also a musician. I'm a singer. This is
No,
actually
cool.
my this is a mic I got for recording. But so yeah, like hardcore karaoke is my jam, and that impressed Sinjin and Jay Ryan. So then I'm now hanging with them for what, hour 6 now. It's
Mm.
like 2 a.m. and he's like, "Oh, let's go get food in the middle of the night." So we go, and I like ended up spending like 12 hours with them. And by the end of the night, they just highly encouraged me to apply. So I did that as soon as I got home, got in October, and that was my Wolves origin story.
October of 2024, 2023, 20, what was this?
I guess 2023.
Wow, so you've been in there for about a year and a half.
More than a year, yeah. Yeah.
More than a year. That's awesome. Yeah, Sinjin seemed. I was lucky enough to have Sinjin on. I believe he was on stream number 2 with Interview with a Wolf,
It's awesome.
and I saw he seems like he's like just my cup of tea. He seems like a foodie. He knows how to cook. You know, he seems like
He
the
led
ult
Korean dude, Wolves Den, Korean barbecue night 2
yeah.
years in a row. He just marinated and grilled meat for
My mouth's
everybody.
watering right now. No, but you know, I watched. I'm happy you brought up Wolf's Den because you know I mentioned before on these streams. You know, I had Sam on. I think he was number three of the interview with the Wolf, and right after that, he was like, "Hey, you know, we're doing this GDC Wolf thing, man. You should come." And I couldn't. You know, I just could not. But what I did do is I watched all the content, and I was really super impressed, especially with some of Icy's content. He
Mhm.
has some really good content. So I got to watch Sinjin obviously cook it up, some late night
Yeah.
4 a.m. Pork fried rice or
Oh,
something I saw.
I was there for that live, so I was, like I'm always the last person to go to bed.
Yeah.
So I was there with them. The boys were up until 5 a.m. playing Dota 2, and at
Mm,
some point, it was taking too long to queue in the lobby. So in the middle of queuing up, Sinjin just gets up and walks away, and we're all wondering, and I'm like, "Guys, do I hear the stove going on?" And we look over, and while queuing, he's just cooking. We have no idea what he's cooking, and he comes back and he's like, "All right, after this round, guys, I got like pork fried rice for you."
wow, man, that is so
It's
good.
5 in
That's
the
so
morning.
awesome. That's so good. Yeah, so you know, with regards to a little bit deeper into the DAO, you know, obviously we talked. You're the one that actually told me originally, if I remember, if I think it was you who told me originally about this meat and the soulbound tokens. You actually have a soulbound token, right? Which
I
is in
do.
your what do you call it, the
It's
banner of your
yeah,
profile.
it's my pin tweet as well.
Okay, yeah, no, it's a beaut for sure. Did you modify that at all, or is that the one that
No,
came up?
that is so the beautiful thing about the Wolves SBTs is that, most NFT collections, they have a very consistent style. The Wolves SBTs are much more varied. Mine is from kind of a Asian theme set, so you can see the katanas in
Mhm.
mine and like that Japanese style sun depiction. Whereas there are some that's nature themed. There's a couple that are card themed. So Icy has a card theme one since he's a big poker guy. And
Mm,
the cool thing about the fact that there's a couple different style themes within the collection is when people pick theirs, you kind of see their personality come through. Like there's something for everybody. So for me, I was like, oh, like I train martial arts, like I train kung fu. I have
oh,
swords, not katanas, but I have swords in my apartment that I practice with. So I saw that one and I stopped all the others. I was like, this one has two swords crossing through it. It's
wow.
Asian themed. That's mine. Then you see Icy, who was like, I need one with cards in it. That's poker. That's me. Or someone who's really into nature picks like the one that's kind of got some tree, like leaf vibes on it. So it's really cool when people pick theirs and announce it because you see how everyone is able to find something that fits their personality.
That's cool. Yeah. I don't know why, but I don't remember there being too much of um, auxiliary type of art around many of the Wolves Soulbound tokens that I've seen before.
Yeah.
Yours seems like it has a lot more to it. I don't know if it's like I know that all of them are one of ones, but I mean, obviously, this one seems like it just has it's a little bit more flashy, which is really cool. I'd like to also mention that I actually own. I'm not sure if you call it a katana, but it's a samurai sword. So I
Nice.
actually own, which is pretty cool. I gotta
That's awesome.
gotta hang it up. Yeah, but no, that's really cool. That's really cool. I really do like yours. So tell me a little bit more about the Wolves DAO. I know that the Wolves DAO just launched Wolf, which is the token that they currently it's a token on AVAX, and
Mhm.
I know that you guys are opening up a Discord section, which the Wolves token is actually the community for that is actually on Telegram now. But are you guys migrating over to Discord? Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so a little bit of difference between with like Wolves DAO and now what is Wolf in this community. So Wolves DAO is capped membership at 300 and has always been that way, with a referral and application based process to get in. And Wolves DAO, you can think of the membership consists of some of the top creators, builders, founders, and thought leaders in the space. And that's really the beautiful thing about that, it being such a curated community, is when I got in, it was just so much higher caliber conversations than what you see in a lot of communities. I've tried to
Mm,
join some Web3 groups in the past, even some that were focused on gaming. And it really easily turns into people shilling their projects or things they have referral codes for, or seeking to take more than they're giving in. Or sometimes they just fade out. Whereas with wolves, I walk in and there's, heavy discussions going on about how are you implementing AI in your game, or here's this feature of the economy design that I'm thinking about in my game. What are other builders' thoughts about it? And people, freely beating up ideas while staying friendly. So just a group where high caliber people can really exchange ideas, knowledge, network, and help each other at that level, which provides a lot of value for the space behind the scenes, right? You don't always see it on the timeline, but builders exchanging ideas with builders and creators and getting feedback from multiple personas is really valuable for them. The connections that people are making and information that's exchanged helps the whole group level up. But because Wolves is capped membership at 300, we've been thinking of ways to kind of extend some of those benefits to other people in the community. So Wolves Den, which is our live events, which, we just had one at GDC, was one way to open that up, right? It wasn't capped to Wolves. A lot of people were able to come hang out at the house, chat with us and the other builders that we brought in, and just vibe and hang out around gaming culture. And that's kind of the vision for this wolf community. We're moving it to Discord
Mhm.
because
So currently it's on Telegram, but
there
you're
is a Telegram,
okay.
and we might keep that. But personally, it probably comes from bias of myself and Peyton, where we're much more Discord people, right?
Right.
What I don't like about Telegram groups, for me at least, as someone who's busy, is a Telegram group with hundreds of people in it gets too noisy and I can't keep up. And it
Mhm.
just ends up falling to, my forget about it group. In Discord, because there's channels, it's a
Yeah.
little bit easier to organize conversation. And there's also more things you can do with the Discord because of plugins, bots, and things like that compared to Telegram. So we just think it's a
Absolutely.
better place to build up a long-term community and experiment with some of the tech that we're working on. So the Wolf community is open to anyone who's got 10,000 Wolf tokens. That's not a dollar amount, that is the amount of token. And at the current price, it's relatively affordable. So it is token gated just to make sure bots aren't in, right? We want this to be a real community and just focused around gaming as a thing that brings everyone together, right?
Mhm.
People who love of games, you don't have to be sweaty. It's for, we're not trying to top any like guild leaderboards anytime soon, but just that as a bonding and unifying experience. And then a community that's going to be around a little bit of what Wolves was in the beginning, right? When Wolves was first starting out, it's people who want to level up, who want to engage in their love of gaming. We're going to try to do some workshops where, people who are interested in content creation, maybe we'll bring a creator who will do a couple workshops on that. People who are interested in some other professional element, like how to organize your LinkedIn to get job offers. Peyton's done that for people in the past. So we want it to be, cool, fun gamer vibes, but also you're here for leveling up and supporting each other. And it's going to be a community where we're actively building as we build out products for Woof that support communities, support games in Web3. We'll be testing a lot of them first in the Woof Discord. So that's a place where people can give feedback, get involved, throw ideas. If we see a good idea, we might, and we have the resources, we might just try to build it.
Awesome. And so, just to be clear, we have the Wolf's DAO Discord, which is capped at 300, and that is a referral based application, and it gets reviewed, and members get purged and added, and things like that. But also, there's another Discord that you guys are going to open up, which is another section of apparently the Wolves DAO Discord, which is token gated. You have to have 10,000 Woof tokens in order to be in that Discord, correct?
Yeah, so you can think of Wolves as, it's the membership capped kind of professional community, and that's a place for builders and high caliber individuals to have some of these deep conversations that might not be appropriate for public, right? I think
Mm,
the Web3, we love building in public, but the audience and the builders both don't necessarily always want to see figuring it out in public, right? There's questions that are too early or might make people misinterpret and lose confidence if you're asking them publicly. So
yeah.
that's more of a safe space for people at that level to have some of these discussions. Whereas Wolf is our new community we're opening that's going to be more open, token gated, but it's not a high commitment. That's going to be for the broader community. So you can think of it as the Wolf's Den vibe, where everyone who just likes this culture was invited to come and hang. And we want the Wolf community Discord to represent kind of that, bringing more people together.
Awesome. And so where can people purchase Woof right now? For anybody not really used to to AVAX, where can you purchase Woof token?
Yeah, so Wolf Token is on AVAX. One of the exchanges that has liquidity right now is Pharaoh, spelled like the word, like the king.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. This has been an amazing conversation. We're kind of wrapping up right here to the end of the hour. I'm sure you got some other things to jump on. Really super bummed out. It seems like I'm missing a lot of the gamified spaces and simplified spaces. I know that that was going on right now. I was looking at the but you know what I always do? I always tend to go back when I'm driving back and forth and I'll listen to it because Sam and his brother Matt always have a lot of and all the guests on stage and stuff like that just always have a lot of cool insight. Always talking about current events going on in gaming. And so I can't wait to listen to that. So shout out to Sam. I just saw
Yeah.
the gamified show just ended.
They're
Or
lucky. Yeah, they're lucky I'm not there because one of the topics is, are you not a gamer if you're not playing Cabria? And if I was on there, I would have been like, absolutely, get on this.
yeah, yeah. Well, hey, it was absolutely a pleasure having you on here. Thanks for accepting the invitation. Really do
Yeah, thanks
appreciate
so
it.
much. This was fun. I really appreciate the touches. The custom background is amazing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this has been Interview with a Wolf number 10. Diaz, appreciate everybody for coming. We got 45 people here, and I'm sure we're going to be definitely talking more behind the scenes. If you don't mind, stick around for just 2 minutes. I just wanted to briefly talk about something with you. For everybody that watched, thank you very much. This is Paul. This is Slayer signing off. Peace.
Bye, guys.
Lord, well, I took that run to heaven, but somehow I came and falling back down. Well, that night on the beach, you said you love me, but I don't believe a word from